Hey, Rainy Joe here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a pretty big album, an album that I've been not so patiently waiting for, and it's finally here. It is the long-awaited, much-anticipated solo debut album from Mr. Geordie Greep, that of course being The New Sound. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who Geordie Greep is and why he's so significant in the music scene right now, then I must inquire you to go and listen to the 3 studio albums from his band Black Midi, which recently announced their disbandment, unfortunately. Back in August, it was announced that this incredible prog-rock, art-rock trio was coming to a close, and that they have completely dissolved the band with, at this time, no intentions to get back together, at least not anytime soon, but they didn't rule out the possibility entirely that a new Black Midi album would exist. However, just a couple weeks after that, Geordie Greep came through and released Holy Holy, the first single from this debut album, The New Sound. And Holy Holy was fantastic. It feels like it takes a lot of what Black Midi was doing and kind of pushes it more into the more theatrical side that is, of course, Greep's sort of personality and his nature. And of course, with that single, the announcement of the album came along with it, October 4th, the same date as a plethora of other fantastic, highly anticipated albums as well coming out. And this one is sitting at 62 minutes long with 11 tracks, and does include The Magician, a 12-minute epic that was teased quite heavily for years by Black Midi. And I even remember seeing The Magician played live during their Hellfire tour, and it absolutely blew my mind. I could not wait to hear it on the next Black Midi album, and I was convinced that whatever was coming next for Black Midi would go on to be possibly their best album yet. But then unfortunately when they disbanded, I was left depressed. I was left saddened by the news because I never get to hear The Magician, the studio version of it, because that song was so incredible, and I needed to hear it. I needed to hear a good quality version of it, because unfortunately all that we had at that point was live recordings. But today, like I said, I will finally be hearing it for the studio version on his debut, The New Sound. So let's get into it. Again, if you're unaware, this is a proggy album. It's very prog rock heavy. It's kind of art rock. It's got a lot of Brazilian influences as well. So expect a very unique, bombastic, very grand sounding album. Let's go in to blues. Right away with the rapid drums. About yourself in the past tense. You have opinions that can't be shaken. Always writing very distinct characters, this Greep. And repetition, that's certainly a trait that Greep utilizes. You know what I mean? Tons of humor already seeping through the lyrics. You can speak English better than anyone, and you can curse like no one ever has done, and you have a bigger than any man who's ever lived, and you can come more than 100 stallions in a room that smells of cigarettes and carry on. And the sheets freezing cold with damp. Already with those ludicrous lyrics. Super. Oh, I love his rambling, nonsensical kind of lyrics. Something that was notable on Hellfire. Ooh. Love the double up the vocals there. I love the characters he writes. They're always so preposterous and full of humor. They're one of ridicule. It's very easy to poke fun and make fun of them, and I love that. Because Hellfire was full of characters like that who were kind of just like sad schmucks who just honestly thought they were either superior to others or were self-pitying to the point of, you know, comedic fashion. And here, and also on the track Holy Holy, you see a character who is highly egotistical. Oh, such a claustrophobic, frantic sort of instrumental here. Oh, dial it back. Who's on the drums? Is that Morgan from Black Midi? This sounds like madness. Oh. Blues kicking things off with Greep's signature comedic abilities, like I said. But specifically, I want to hone in on the fact that to this day, I feel like every time I hear something from this man, whether it be in Black Midi or his 2 tracks here that I've heard so far, I always think he can't push the noisy, the very abrasive, and claustrophobic soundscapes that he does. And I always assume that when he tries to outdo himself with these very climactic, again, frantic instrumentals, they're eventually going to get a little too clustered, a little too muffled, and hard to sort of disconnect the instruments. But still, on blues, it was all very clear. It was all very crystal clear. All the instruments quite divided, quite beautifully, very well mixed. I will admit, Cavalcade here is a fantastic record, but its biggest fault was the mixing on some of the tracks. Specifically, I remember the track Dethroned gets a little bit too muffled in the mix, but Hellfire fixed that, and it seems like here on the new sound, Greep is having no issues whatsoever with the production done by his friend Seth Evans. It's nice to see Morgan Simpson on the drums as well. It's nice to see that there's no bad blood between the two of them, and it seems like Morgan will appear on a few more tracks from what I read, so I'm excited to check out where he'll appear, because Morgan Simpson as well is one of the best drummers I've heard working today. Fantastic drummer. Let's go into the next track, that of course being Terra. Blues really kicked it off. Not as bluesy as one might expect. A bit of a softer start, which is nice. Very theatrical and kind of operatic almost in his performance. Very performative. And here's those Brazilian influences kind of coming in. A little bit of Latin. I like this one too. It's very kind of like jazzy. Ooh, not sure what that was, but I like it. Very high pitched. I like those backup vocals too. Those female vocalists, it sounds like. This is like some sort of sexually induced track, perhaps. Oh, I love this plucking. Incredible. Like I said, Brazilian influences are strong on this one. I feel like we are being taken around the world on this track. And those horns too, so elevated. Oh. Oh, those backup vocals too. They're so beautiful. They add so much layering. Oh. Oh, Mr. Greep. Never heard him howl in such a way like that. Incredible. God. Those Brazilian influences, again, coming in strong. Really showcasing Greep's kind of appreciation for Brazilian music, which he's made quite apparent with a lot of the interviews he's been doing as of late. And on top of that, his vocals, again, very performative, especially in that final sort of outro there where he just howled, which we've never heard ever before, I feel like, on anything Black Midi related. So again, it's nice to see him kind of challenging himself vocally, because I feel like they kicked off their career back in 2019 with their debut album, and with every release it feels like he has continued to push himself vocally and of course sonically, but that's a given. Let's go into Holy Holy, which continues, of course, that Brazilian influence, but mixes it with the noise of a Black Midi. Bum 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 bum. I love that. I believe that's like a, I don't know, like bass perhaps. Another track about a guy who thinks he's more important than he actually is. Who's seeing a prostitute on this track. Oh, those vocals, they really take it away. And he's loved by both the extremists on both sides, of course, in his mind at least. Oh, and I love the rising tension and that sax. You can't help but like kind of move to this track. It's so groovy.
Of course you know my name. Everyone does. It's true. It's true. You are new. I'll have you.
He's trying to conquer these women, it would seem, in his mind. And then like a bit of a deviation here as we move to Havana. This is gonna go insane in a live performance. Oh, I love the horns. I love where they take the entire track. Whoever the background vocals are, maybe this name here, is fantastic. Oh, bum, 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 bum. I believe that's Seth Evans, or Shank, as we call him. This is my favorite segment of the track. This outro, so prolonged. So full of humor, drenched in humor. This part's hilarious. Never been so crude. Black Midi up him. The desperation and the kind of patheticness of the man is so comical. I feel like we all know someone like this. Oh, this part too. The overdubbing of those vocals. Oh. It's so like ethereal in tone, contrasting the very patheticness of this man. And then it has a long fade out, which is very unexpected for Greep, but I think it works. Kind of shows how our narrator here is kind of like in this kind of never-ending desperation. Let's go into the new sound, the title track. It's an instrumental track. Well, don't mind if I do. Certainly playing with the kind of world music influences. Very Zappa-ish. It seems Greep has been going in that direction. Because this kind of reminds me of something that Frank Zappa would do. Both this track and some of the kind of lyrics of the album. Very beautiful piano. This track feels like it has a nice hopeful kind of element to it. I feel like we've never heard Greep feel so optimistic in tone. Oh. Those guitars. Feeling so, just like inventive and kind of whammy induced. Oh, those horns. This track is so sweet and so full of joy. Our bass guitar here. I believe that's a bass, unless that's a string instrument. This one is both light yet complex. Very complex arrangements, but very light in terms of focus and atmosphere. I'm surprised this wasn't the opener. It really has a kind of opening tone to it. Beautiful track. A nice little kind of break from the heaviness. Let's go into Walkup. Kind of a heavy sound.
Walk up to a place you'll never forget.
It's like a tension rising on this one with his instrumental.
The red paradise of dreams and scars. Leg scars, arm scars, stomach scars lead by far.
Ooh, I like the way that rhymed.
The old country star, great things could refuse. Welcome to hell.
A little bit of a Hellfire reference. Oh.
You still smell her snatch.
That's grotesque. Really like the tension on this one. I like that guitar there. That kind of strums away. Don't say that.
Your fish fingers shake hands with the top flight men. Check your balls for lumps.
Definitely do. Very important. Seems like another kind of desperate man on this track. Oh, the choruses are so frantic up against these much more gentle verses. Oh. Seems like our narrator here is yearning for one woman in particular, and is again full of desperation, similar to some of the other characters we've seen so far. Oh. It's a cycling instrumental. What? Oh my god. This is very Zappa-ish. So incredibly weird. Two words. Full of humor. I love that. It's so tongue-in-cheek. Very self-aware. Yeah, this is Lumps. I thought it was from Black Midi days. Walkup was also really great, but again, so bizarre, especially that outro. What a cutoff. Let's go in through a war. Seems like there's a very concrete idea of a similar character throughout this album. Such a I love how he paints such a vivid picture in all the music that he does. I feel like he's been doing it quite heavily since Cavalcade specifically, and it feels like his songwriting has only improved over time. So vivid in his imagery. Wonder what war it's in reference to. Late 1800s. Another character who is so desperate to impress. It could be the same character. I'm not too sure, but it does seem like either it's one character who is full of desperation and pouring his love out to one woman in particular as the album goes on, or it's a multitude of characters who are just all as pathetic as the next. And perhaps we're going through the ages, considering we're in the 1800s now with it. I love this whole passage here, though. For your touch, I'd have conquered every village in the land. I would have disemboweled myself just to hold your hand. It's both sweet yet hilariously pathetic.
Appear like a dream between trees. I knew I'd have to get you to live with me. Did you deceive?
Oh, this one's a very sweet track too. I think instrumentally, it's so much softer. Still Breathe for You Alone. Very sweet.
Carve my name on every piece of gold. I made them carve yours everywhere.
Putting her above himself.
On every tree, on every train, on every
Even on the water itself.
to hold your breath. A beating heart to squeeze it hard till it bursts.
Smothering.
Feel its blood running down your wrist. To know you are God.
He's overly infatuated, it would seem.
Seen a man beg for his life.
This is something we've seen Greep do quite heavily, especially again on Hellfire with 27 questions, where it's like an endless bout of questions. I always love when he does this. It's a very notable characteristic of his writing, and it always makes for some great humor, some very interesting sort of, I guess, philosophical moments, or at some points just kind of like parody, it would seem.
Seen that kind of fear.
Seems like this man's doing this for the woman. Those Brazilian influences are still coming in quite strong with the guitar work.
You my lover faultless, you will never die. You my lover
And so sweet.
the apple of my eye.
He's
Gave me
idolizing this woman.
an incurable disease, for which I'm so glad you'll always be with me.
Worshipping her to the point of a fault.
My loins, the music of your voice. With each tremor in
This is probably one of the prettiest tracks so far.
voice.
A really fun kind of melody here to close things out. I love that slight ting on top of it all. Seems like this woman has turned him down. Oh. Not sure if that was Morgan on the drums, but whoever it was, just fantastic. And on top of that, that was just such a sweet song. I would say it's a love song, but it's almost like Greep's version of a love song on the new sound so far is so twisted and tormented. It's really hard to call it a pure love song, considering there's such a sourness to the love. It's usually quite one-sided, or at least, if not one-sided, imbalanced, I would say. And on that track, it certainly seemed like this narrator was giving it all and getting nothing in return. Whether or not that's the fault of his own is, I guess, up to interpretation. Let's go into Bongo season. I wonder, is this going to use bongos as in the instrument, or will this be a continuation of Tristan Bongo, one of the characters from Hellfire? I have a feeling it's just going to be with the instrument, but it would be nice to see Tristan Bongo make a return, because I liked him quite a bit. I thought he was quite humorous. This is an instrumental. No, it's not. It's just an intro. Seems like other people are mentioning Tristan Bongo in the comments. I'm a big fan of that character. And we've seen him kind of reuse characters or locations or ideas from previous work before.
Their tales are interlinked.
Oh.
An orchestra plays through the floorboards.
Self-mutilation.
He says hello as they say goodbye.
These poor mice. Not sure what that one instrument is. That clicking, that percussion perhaps. But everything is so rattly, it's really hard to kind of define one instrument from another. Ooh. It surely is. If not bongo season, at least the new sound is. This one feels like a nice little kind of segment or a passage from one track to the next. Almost a skit, if one might say. Let's go on a Motorbike. This one specifically has Seth Evans credited on Spotify. Oh, he's singing. I did not expect vocals. Reminds me of Cameron. Full of regret, this character. Throwing his life away, it would seem. Holy hell. Kicks into it. This one, maybe the most rapid we've gotten on Motorbike here. Feeling like a motorbike trailing away. Seems like our man here is full of regret, having thrown his life away for this woman. And it seems to be just leaving her entirely and selling all the belongings to make his own riches. Oh. She's coming with a vengeance. Yeah, midlife crisis for sure. In full swing. I love the urgency of those strings in the background there.
To see me riding away, just to catch a glimpse of my brand new VMAX engine.
Yeah, our character here is in the midst of a midlife crisis and doing what many men do: flee the scene. Oh, God. I love the kind of squealing, both instrumentally and vocally. Oh, such an evil sound. This is an incredibly heavy outro. Holy hell. Maybe the heaviest moment so far. Wow. I love that the cycling piano there. Very cyclical. Oh my god, these overdubbed vocals of Seth. This is insane. God. That last, like, 2 minutes instrumental there, it feels like we were with Seth there in that that midlife crisis. But man, the overdubbing of those vocals were, it's like you really felt like you were in this anxiety-induced panic that he's clearly going through. And it's kind of funny because maybe there's like a sense of self-awareness, like he's realizing that he's going through a midlife crisis throughout the track. I also really love just like, again, very comedic this track is, yet so sinister in sound. Very contrasting. Also, maybe the best track so far. I loved how rapid like a motorbike it was. Very comedic, like I said, but that final 2 minutes just felt like it was the most disturbed we've heard the album get. And paints a very real scene, something that many men go through, unfortunately, when they're in a marriage for too long and want to get out, or they just feel like their life has gotten quite stale. They spin out of control, just like that motorbike. Let's go into As If Waltz, which is 8 minutes. We're approaching the big one. Really nice to have Seth come in for a track too. I like to imagine it's all one character so far we've been following, considering how kind of disparate and pathetic he's been. Paying for another prostitute, it would seem. This one's quite pretty too. The plucking of those strings or those keys. Maybe it was both. Oh. Is this that waltz we spoke of in the title?
To see you without your makeup on, to see you cry.
Could be a continuation of Holy Holy specifically, given the makeup line.
To stay
So our character got a bit of a cuck tendency there. So light and sweet, this track. But it's not gonna last, will it? There it is. Oh. I love the pinging back and forth. He wants this woman to fall in love with him. Oh. There it is. Confirmed. A cuck track. He yearns for that hour. I love the back and forth between the gentleness and the disturbed fantasies throughout the verses.
To pretend I met you anywhere but here, to wish I met you anywhere but here.
Here it's taking a much more romantic approach, whereas the verses are a very real picture of who this woman is.
To never tell your secret, to never tell your secret.
Very sad, honestly, the more it goes on.
How much you for more than an hour.
This is a beautiful track. Oh my goodness. How could something so grotesque be so pretty?
For more than an hour.
It's gonna come back. Ooh. Oh.
To act as if I'm any different than the rest. Pick me, I'm different than all the rest.
Oh, this is much more beautiful than I would have expected. Just gonna like it again. It's so freaking good. And that beautiful, vivid picture of a life together shattered, it would seem, in this instrumental. Oh, those guitars. So electric. So ambitious. Another extended instrumental to close out the track. Matching this album's themes of pathetic men who yearn for another, we got a full-length 8-minute cuck anthem in the form of As If Waltz, which was somehow both sad and disturbed, as it was really pretty and very beautiful in those soft verses. It had a nice parallel between the chorus and the verse, and then, of course, that twisted, extended outro, which I feel like takes the beauty that he pictures in his mind of this very romantic relationship and shatters it all. A gorgeous track. As If Waltz, I feel like every track I've been saying, oh, that one's better than the last, that one's better than the last. As If Waltz might be the best. But we are going into the 12-minute epic, The Magician, which I've been waiting for years, and I'm very excited to hear it because this track live was incredible. I remember being on the edge of my seat, holding a camera, just filming it all, blown out of my mind with what I was hearing. And here it is. I feel like the album's themes of kind of heartbreak and loneliness and desperation are really all just leading up to this epic. And it feels like when I saw this performed live, I was hoping for Black Midi to do a full-length kind of sad boy album, very emotion filled. And it seems like that's what the new sound has been giving us, was the album that I've been waiting for. So let's go in to The Magician. Just a gentle... Ugh. Hearing that again takes me back. I feel like this is kind of Greep at his most vulnerable lyrically. I kind of like how buried in the mix those guitars are. I love how the instruments all feel like they're kind of trading off and bouncing off one another with each riff. Oh, I don't remember that piano in the live versions. Slap him on the have sex, 'cause it's the only way he can come. Continuing that line of patheticness. Oh. Ooh, really beautiful plucking guitars there.
The whirring cogs of futile despair.
Those kind of rattling lines of imagery. Oh my goodness, that extended yowl. The guitar's sounding evil, like on Hellfire there. Verse 5, we've been waiting for this one. Where he gets very vulnerable, it feels like. I like how you could hear, like, sounds like kids playing in the background there. Really adding to that isolation and sadness, a yearning.
I'm hiding from the government, my fictional wife.
Front and center, Greep's vocals.
My dreams and my memories. I'm hiding from my life. I'm hiding from you, hiding from my family. I'm hiding from the explanation.
A man at his lowest, it would seem.
I've been doing wrong. Am I go? So much has happened since you were a million fears ago.
You were a million years ago.
So many
Beautiful line.
taken your place. A million more things to keep me awake.
Can't be replaced.
No, I don't sleep anymore. I just rest my eyes.
Ugh.
I'm running from your lips. I'm running from your. You're dead in the German Black Forest, of which I know nothing. I dream you ride a black horse back and forth, back and forth. With no compass to follow or landmark to reach, you perambulate aimlessly.
Incredible
through
songwriting here.
nondescript trees in the
Getting
nondescript
very
forest,
kind of literate.
which I know nothing and can't visualize. And I awake from the dream. No, none of it's real. I don't sleep. I don't sleep.
It's getting
I wander through cavernous,
more panicked.
through nothingness, through saga. I'm hiding from your never-ending torrent of shit. Like the spouse happily married.
It's being tormented.
Like the world-famous actor, still completely unknown. Like the German
Oh.
forest of you.
Oh, it's all coming together.
I know not your eyes, your skin, your stench, your sins, your
The grocery list.
your heart, your bones,
The
your
common Greepism.
your grin, your tics, your sex, your shame. I know only your name.
Oh, great use of space there. Dialing it back.
Many fantasies before her kiss. What's left of the dreamer?
Oh. Comes back to that rift. And I love how muffled Greep gets here with the claustrophobic kind of instrumental. And like the magician, we could barely hear him. Man, this breakdown feels like the most extended and complex we've ever heard this track get. So many different little passages phasing in and out. Is it too soon to call this a concept album? Because it feels like, feels like this is very much a conceptual album, at least in terms of continuing this narrative of a man who is desperate, lonely, very isolated, and yearns for a love. And it seems like as the album goes on, he gets more and more desperate and professes a love until finally we get to, you know, tracks like Motorbike or As If Waltz and then The Magician, where it's almost like his insecurities and his kind of pathetic sexual desires eat him alive, and he wants to get out. He gets full of anxiety, and he wants to rid himself of this woman entirely, it would seem. The Magician here, feeling like he is the most panicked, and anxiety induced that he's ever been. It's probably the most tortured sounding track, especially that outro where he completely disappears, much in the same way of the magician here, kind of disappearing in that outro. Love the parallel between the lyrics and, of course, Greep's performance. Very picturesque. Let's go into If You Are But a Dream, which, if you aren't aware, is a Frank Sinatra cover, which Geordie Greep has expressed being a massive Sinatra fan for years. I remember he did a video for, I believe it was, he did like one of those What's in Your Bag videos, and if I'm not mistaken, he shouted out Sinatra on there, specifically his album Watertown from the early 70s. And it seems like Greep here continuing to honor Sinatra with a cover, which I'm sure ties into the narrative in some way. We're going to hear him croon.
But a dream, I hope I never waken.
Which, if you hear his music, Greep specifically, I mean, both the Black Midi and here, it's no surprise that he's a fan of the 40s and 50s era of Sinatra. I feel like it comes through on a lot of his tracks. The Defense on Hellfire was very Sinatra-esque.
It's more than I could bear to find.
And it's like a sweet love track here,
forsaken.
continuing the narrative of the album for sure.
And pray my dream comes true. I love
Hear him croon.
kiss you are but a dream.
Easily the most traditional of a track so far. Maybe overly traditional. I feel like we're really throwing things back. Those... oh,
I long to kiss you,
can't find the
but would not dare.
credits, but the horns on this
I'm so afraid
really harken back to 40s and 50s kind of jazz.
may vanish. But a dream.
Beautiful tribute to Sinatra, but also perfectly captures the themes of the album in such a short 3-minute piece. And that does it for the new sound. I feel like every track here has been so unique, so incredible from one another, yet as unique as some of them are, it's such a concrete and cohesive listen, thematically speaking, with this character, like I've been saying, who is incredibly pathetic and yearning for love, and completely bears himself, kind of laid flat in the open for this woman, only for him to, in the end, seem to be full of anxiety and panic, and does not make a man of himself, it would seem, because he has dedicated so much of himself to this woman. And even the album's cover here very much suggests the same kind of theme, where he's kissing this woman, completely handing himself over as she completely decapitates him, which I think the cover, the themes of the tracks, and the cohesiveness of it all together makes this a very concrete whole project. It feels like there's a specific vision that Greep had when making the album, and it all comes together quite beautifully. It's so strong. It's an hour and 2 minutes, and it flies by from track to track with a sense of ease. It's at times claustrophobic and suffocating, I would say, while at the same time there are moments of pure bliss, of sort of relaxation. Sometimes he chooses to dial back the instrumentals and really give you space to breathe before diving back into things. And other times you have tracks that are much more, I would say, performative and laid back and softer, again, giving you moments of breathing room. But then you have, obviously, the suffocation of the ending of Motorbike or the ending of Magician. It's just a really great listen with incredibly complex compositions, a great Brazilian twist throughout most of the tracks, and I feel like you hear influences from all around the world, culturally and stylistically. It's just such a dynamic listen. And I love the tribute at the end to Sinatra because, again, like I said, it really just ties all the themes together. A great album, could quite possibly be my album of the year. Too soon to tell, but like, there's not a track on here I didn't like. And with how complex and just vivid the imagery is throughout the album, and the execution of the tracks instrumentally, it's certainly up there as one of the best albums I've heard this year, hands down. Yeah, I feel like this is the closest we'll get to LP4 from Black Midi, but it's very much what I was kind of hoping for when Hellfire finished and I heard The Magician. I said I wanted a sad boy album. I wanted an album full of desperation in the same way that The Magician gave us when they were doing it live, and the new sound very much delivers on that front. So it checks all the boxes for what I wanted and some, because a lot of this I didn't even know I wanted until I heard it. But that does it for the video today. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe to follow along, and listening to more albums alongside myself. Very soon we are going to kick off Rocktober, where I will be listening to different rock albums throughout the month of October, starting with Dark Side of the Moon, which I have never heard in full. So please, if you're interested in Dark Side of the Moon, you like that album, and you want to see a reaction from myself, go ahead and subscribe, and then we will cover a bunch of other rock albums, including a King Crimson album, most likely, because I've only heard a couple of their albums in full, and I'd like to check out some more of their work. As always, my name is Rennie Joe. I appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.